Well, black people didn't just get off that day. All those people who got off that day
this has
had
nothing
that
to
day
do with
off.
who gets off and who won't get off.
No, but
we are talking about this. Have nothing to do with that. You going way, man. You going way outside of this. You losing me here. Get off and get. I ain't talking about that.
We're talking
We
about.
had a Martin Luther King celebration.
And so
We had a keynote
I cannot
speaker.
speak for those people. All we
But
can.
do you think that's right?
I think it's acceptable for what the Community Coalition on Race does.
Okay, if you think it's acceptable, then what can I tell you? All right.
I can't say it's unacceptable because you know what? Listen.
Why is it acceptable,
Why
Margie?
are we? It's going to be 9:00 and we haven't even
But Margie,
finished.
these are the type of discussions we had to have in these communities.
But
And
it's
have
just
to tell
you
people-
yelling at me, and
No, I'm not yelling
okay,
at
I
you.
understand.
No,
I'm not taking this personal.
okay.
But it's just you getting hyped up at me. I could see if someone else, look on your phone and see if someone has some comment about that. But all I'm saying to you is that
Let's listen to Forrest Whitaker.
let's listen to Forrest
It's
Whitaker.
important for black people to tell their own stories without feeling limited.
Okay.
Let's listen to what he has to say. Let's see. Maybe he might give me some information, with my rant and rave, and misbehave.
Oh God, now he's got a new one.
He might be able to help me here with the discussion. Anytime we trying to get these audio up, sometimes these audio take just a little while.
But you know what? Let's go back while we're waiting on that. Before, as soon as the cue's up,
Being able to get something
But I want to say to you that
done is
all kinds of ways for people to reach a point. That is the method they take. We take another method.
I actually had the privilege of interviewing screenwriter Gregory Allen this past summer, and we discussed the whitewashing of black stories often. He took issue with the fact that the James Brown biopic Get On Up was written and directed by white people. Let's take a look.
The question is, who's going to tell these stories? The children, the beneficiaries, me and others, the children of the civil rights struggle, or a bunch of strangers. And that's really what this boils down to. And in tough times, and these are tough times in the business, let's be honest, people close ranks and help each other out, help their friends out. Well, don't help your friends out with my black icons. These icons meant something to me and to millions of black people, and we need to be included in the storytelling. And it's really just as simple as that.
What do you think, for having an inside perspective as someone who auditions, or who used to audition much more, or as someone who creates, as someone who produces?
I mean, I think it is great and important when people can tell their individual stories from a very personal level. But there's also been some great films that have been told about individuals, like the Gandhis, the different characters that were from different cultures. People from different cultures were able to see something unique about them, too. I know Greg, because me and Greg, we developed a project together about child soldiers in Uganda. And so I understand that point of view, and I think it is very important that those voices are allowed to be heard and that these filmmakers are allowed to tell their individual personal stories. But then, like I say, it's a large tapestry, and sometimes, I don't want to be limited that I can only tell stories about a certain culture either. So I don't want to use that prejudice against other cultures to be able to tell stories about the full diaspora of who we are as people, as human beings, But I definitely know that there are stories that are very personal to me that come from my background, my upbringing, that I would like to tell directly myself. And that's just my desire on those particular projects.
Can you extrapolate on the importance of that? Because so often people are like, well, who cares? As long as something's getting made, why does that matter?
I think that you want to make sure that there's a truth that's being told, and I think that if you're from an experience at times that that allows you to be able to look at some of the layers that weren't maybe seen, But again, I think there have been amazing films too, and stories and storytellers that have told stories about different cultures that have allowed us to see into a world too, because they didn't see it exactly where we are. We have to have both. We have to not limit ourselves. We have to not limit ourselves to just a color palette, but we have to be able to say that those people of that culture should be allowed the opportunity to be able to tell those stories. And specifically, that they should be given the room to explore their own social experience, their own life, their own race, their own culture. Alongside all the other stories that are being told too.
Where I see hope is not only are we seeming to tell more stories, people are actually watching and listening and hearing in the hopes of understanding, in the hopes of gaining a context
Yes.
for where we are in America in 2015, which is a very troubled, fractured place.
Sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of stories that need to be told. We're dealing in a time where we're talking about justice and people like being able to live fully, you know what I mean, as human beings with certain rights, you know, and I think those stories will be explored, and the other stories that will be explored will just like continue to build out the deep tapestry of who we are, you know, as human beings and as people, and people of color, different people from all different walks.
So there you have it, Marjorie. That is exactly what I'm talking about. You know, why do we have to get other people to tell our story? If you're gonna have a Martin Luther King event, all right, and I'm not saying that it should be predominantly black. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you're gonna have a keynote speaker in a Martin Luther King event, it should be a person of color.
All right, so we would have to. They got 2 points here. Go back on, look at all of the events they've done, and see if that's been the case.
No, I don't care what I don't care what they have done in the past. Anytime you're gonna do a keynote speaker for a Martin Luther King event, it should be somebody that looked like Martin Luther King to tell that story.
Or what about the guy who read Martin Luther King's speech?
He wasn't telling. He was just reading the speech. He wasn't telling a story. He was just reading the speech. That was just a speech.
Yeah, it's one I've heard many, many times.
Yeah, we have that speech many, many times.
Yeah.
He did a great job. But I'm saying that was my takeaway from the from that event. In that, you know, why do I have to listen to? And this is nothing against the gentleman, because I'm sure he's passionate. I'm sure he participated in the civil rights movements, and I'm sure he was going through that stuff because, you know, he want to see better. He want to see equality in this world. But just as Forrest Whitaker said, we can't keep on having other people telling our story.
Okay, now 2 things. Somehow, I don't know if you heard the part of the story where he said that he went to do the first crossing at Selma when people got beat down. He didn't go back the second time or the third time when they finally crossed the bridge from Selma on their march to Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
That may resonate with many people. It may resonate with white people who
Are we into resignation now?
we listen.
Okay.
God, it would resonate and make, you know, the feeling for white people who identify with that man. And sad to say, it would probably resonate with a lot of black people who feel bad that man did that. Not bad, but have sad feelings about that. I'm not a psychologist, but I do recognize that black people, and did you see the movie Selma? Yes, you saw it? Or
No,
you
yeah,
didn't see it?
it.
I sat there and I could barely stand. I can't stand watching black people get beat up by cops on, you know, I just can't, I can't handle that. Mm-hmm. And I felt when I left that movie that I had been beat up, but I can't handle that. But some people could watch that like they watched Solomon Northup and 12 Years a Slave. It's easy to watch black people get beat and be chained. For some people, they don't feel that. They don't have the empathy. But when white people get hurt, they feel it because they don't recognize themselves or brown people of color as necessarily, you know, humans with feelings. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. It's part of being oppressed. I remember a student one time said to me, you know, Miss Lloyd, I feel so bad about the Jews, you know, and their Holocaust. And this was a student from Liberia. And I'm like, honey, I think you better, you know, you better look at some of our old stuff and see what's happening. There's a whole lot of oppressed people out there. And later on, the student, interesting enough, told me, "Oh, I went and majored in political science because of you." Now she's got a job doing policy, and she's tutoring somebody, and put on her Facebook that somebody she's tutoring said, "God, all the, evil and corrupt things that have happened in history started with, Europeans doing stuff." So, I mean, how long does it take for somebody to click? You just have to open other people's eyes. And so all that's necessary, is for there to be alternatives to that. That program is good for them. And then the types of people that we want to reach and galvanize and build community with, that the kind of forums that you and I can sponsor will serve those people and our needs.
No, but
I think I would have felt worse if we had done nothing. Yes?
But we want to reach those people who are sitting in that church as well.
That's true.
They are community members of South Towns.
That is true.
And we want them to understand that, there is more to just going and sitting in a church and listening to someone up on a pulpit, giving you a speech, and not involving you, mentally. Involving you and listening to how can I persuade or change a person mindset about certain things.
And what can I add to the discussion to change their mindset?
All right. How can I influence and help you understand that, listen, I don't have anything against you, but I just want you to understand the plight that we deal with on a daily basis. The plight Martin Luther King dealt with. The plight Malcolm X dealt with. The plight Kwame Ture dealt with. And not only that, as
the plight we deal with every day,
and right, and as we
people in
honor
Ferguson,
as we honor Martin Luther King today, the government, right, they bugged Martin Luther King,
right?
Okay, the government, so I know we are doing all these things today, but for me. And not growing up in this country, only coming to this country at 18 years of age, and knowing that people in this country, especially, the people, black and people of color in this country, the 18 years that they had to deal with the oppression that I didn't have to deal with. All right?
Well, hundreds of years of oppression.
Well, yeah, I'm talking
but the 18 years that you missed out on.
Yeah, the 18 years that I missed out on.
That's because that's where it really starts.
Yeah, that I didn't have to deal with. Kind of have me with a different sort of mindset because, I wasn't oppressed. So I never think about anything from an oppressive standpoint of someone is superior to me. Because if I keep beating on you and beating on you and beating on you, and I keep giving you these negative images about yourself, eventually you're going to think, maybe I'm not really worth anything.
Well, I don't know if it's an eventual thing. I think that's the way people really think, Anselm. I don't think it takes too long. It starts very, very early, that process of feeling less than human. That's one of the faces of oppression. And I understand that, we keep going back over this point that you didn't come from here, but I did come from here, and I didn't know that I was oppressed because I didn't grow up knowing that. I thought that everything was fine. I knew Martin Luther King, about him. I remember when a girl came in crying Martin Luther King was killed, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I didn't know. I just didn't know because I didn't know that I didn't know. I wasn't oppressed. I really didn't feel that way.
No,
but you know what? It takes those of us who don't have the same type of economic oppression and self-hatred to move forward. It's the others who are not aware of how this beats down on their psyche. Mm-hmm. And one thing I did learn in college while studying, because I was studying Africans and Arabs in particular, because I knew that the Arabs are going to be the biggest issue in my later life. And someone said, why do people who are not of a group study other people? Why are there historians that study only black people, be they white historians? Why are there black people who are only focused on Japan? Why don't people just study their own people? And that's a question. Another question I always wonder is, why is the hand of philanthropy always a white hand? Why does it? I need